We're on the air with Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue. And I am your host, Malcolm Berman, and we are co-hosts.
I'm Deborah Manning, and I'm here in
adorable Deborah.
You bet. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, and it is Monday. And we weren't able to do it on Friday because things were crazy.
But we're going to do it. We're going to do it this Friday again because we could do two. What I'd like to do, I almost just before I got on, what I'd like to do is have this done like in the evening, like about 6 o'clock in the evening, because I feel like having a glass of wine and some cheese and talking to you and sit down as two friends talking, discussing issues, discussing
things. Might be a good idea.
We have to figure out how to do that.
That would be good. But on Friday, I got my first COVID vaccine shot, and it went perfectly. It went beautifully. Of course, the news media here, like unfortunately, a lot of the news all said it was going to be horrendous, that there were going to be long lines. You'd have to wait 3 and 4 hours, and that they were going to, blah, 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 blah. Well, the day before they had run out of vaccines because this horrible, horrible weather that's started in Texas, and now it's working its way up through Memphis, Tennessee. One of their trucks that was delivering the vaccine got stalled, and they were not able to make the delivery on time. Of course, poor Austin, Texas, and Dallas, and of course the horrific accident they had because of the ice flows that took place. But at any rate, on Friday, I got in and out literally in a half an hour, beautifully orchestrated. And they had it's the old Kmart Center. Kmart moved out and Prism Healthcare moved in, and they probably had close to 500 separate tables. And I got to tell you, it was like going to Disneyland. It was absolutely flawlessly done. They had people pointing you to go to various places, et cetera, asked you tons and tons of questions as to whether or not you'd had any symptoms and blah, blah, blah. And it was very interesting because a number of people, because now they've opened it up for everybody age 65 and older. And it was interesting because there was a feeling from everybody, a feeling of relief, a feeling of joy. I saw tears in people's eyes that were happy to be able to get this vaccine. And it's ironic because so many people said, no, I'm not going to take the vaccine. And yet everybody that was there was very, very pleased, as I was, very grateful to have the vaccine as quickly as we got it. So the shot went fine. And in fact, it was far less painful than the normal flu shot these days. I've had, no symptoms whatsoever. I'll go back in about 21 days to get my second shot. And it'll be interesting. Now, you've had your shot, is that correct?
Yes, I've had the shot. I had it, actually, it's a whole week.
Okay.
But the thing that supposedly was the horrendous thing about getting the shot was the fact of people contacting someone to schedule the shot, because I understand people were on the telephone or on the computer for hours. That's where the whole tie-up was, to get an appointment.
Not the case with us. Here in South Carolina, you had to get on. We got on the first day, which was on a Monday. Actually a week ago, you got onto it. I got onto it around 8 o'clock in the morning, put all my information in, scanned my health card, and then chose a time to go. I was beat out the first time, which was about 11:15, but then I was immediately offered a 12:15, and I said, I'll go ahead and take it. Now, mind you, all of those appointments were probably gone by about 9:15 or 9:30 that same morning, but they were able to get in. They're getting it at this rate right now. It looks like about 2,000 to 3,000 people a day are being vaccinated. And as I say, I appreciated having the computer, because I'll tell you, sitting on the phone, that would be like listening to the DMV, for crying out loud.
I had a fairly simple time. Relatively, because I didn't go right away, even though I could, because I'm at the older age group. I'm a senior. Any more senior than me, they're dead.
Okay.
But I called up, I'm a member of Casa Permanente, which is an HMO. I think it's huge all over the country, but I know it's, I think the largest one in California.
Yes.
And I got to my person and they said, okay, we're going to call you, we're going to leave your name with I told her what the hospital or the area I am. And they said, okay, we're going to have them call you back within 3 to 5 days, 3 to 5 business days. And I thought, oh, sure, 3 to 5 business days. And I think that was like a Thursday or a Friday. Sunday, I get a call, which surprised me. And they said, yes, we have, we understand you, so and so. And they had, of course, all my record from Kaiser. And they said, they told me it wasn't I said the Panorama City, which would be my regular hospital. They said, no, but we have something in Sylmar, which is about maybe 15 minutes further. And they scheduled me for, I think it was actually February 8th. So that was a week ago, Monday.
There you go. There you go.
And they told me the time and I went there. The whole thing from parking to when I left after waiting the 15 minutes was an hour. And that includes when I was resting or after they said, are you okay? I said, yes. Oh, by the way, we wanted to check you out with your regular doctor or to catch up your record. So they put me in a room and it was like a Zoom. And this was a nurse practitioner. And she was asking me about anything wrong, the medications I was taking. And it was nice. And then they said, they scheduled me then for a month after, which happens to be my birthday, March 8th.
Oh, is that right?
Right.
Well, it'll be nice.
So anyway, for those out there who know me, I accept gifts. When it comes
or to booze, one or the other.
Well, I mean, booze is fine. Now I can't go out drinking with the guys or the gals, so you can send the bottles here. I mean, I'm Scotch. Yeah, I mean, if you really got a lot of money, a single malt liquor, Scotch, Glenlivet would be fine, or Johnny Walker Black.
Yep,
it's fine. I mean, I'll sit down and drink it with you. But anyway, so it was fairly simple.
Well, this week we were able to at least put to rest. We'll go into a little bit of politics, just a bit. The second impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump is now in the past. And it was an interesting situation, obviously. I believe that what's the cost to taxpayers? Was it 11 or 12 million dollars? I'm not really sure, but there was certainly a lot of flim flam and a lot of fury that was certainly going on. You and I have talked about this with the situation with the attack on the Capitol. And once again, I'd like to see a lot more of the coverage of the arrests of these people who attacked the Capitol. Once again, if you can't tell, I voted for Trump and was extremely upset to see the attack on the Capitol. But once again, with the situation with the impeachment, had already left office at this point. And as you and I have talked about it, my feeling is, and once again, I supported Trump, but I was very disappointed that he didn't, as the attack started to take place, that he didn't get on the horn and say to everybody, hey, folks, back off. I told you guys peacefully protest. I'm not talking about attacking the Capitol. And I believe that he really let his temper get away from him, unfortunately. And it's understandable. He's a guy, he's a man, but he also had responsibilities as a president, not enough to impeach him. But I'll tell you, the Republicans who decided to vote for the impeachment, they are coming home to some very, very, very angry voters who at this point, as I've heard it, will ask them to no longer represent them in Congress or in the Senate.
We should find out. What do you think about the statement that McConnell did afterwards?
I was disappointed. I was disappointed only because it's quite a mixed message. McConnell I don't ever really think that he liked Trump, and that has nothing to do with anything. I do believe that you need to be true to to your party, and I think you do need to be true to the policies because you don't like an individual. You can dislike an individual, but you need to support many of the policies, and many of the policies that Trump proposed and enacted really did help America dramatically. And of course, the consternation is now that President Biden is in place, that he's had a number of executive orders. What are we up to, 60 or 70 executive orders to roll back many of the things that President Trump had put into place? And of course, some of the impressions are that President Biden is doing it strictly because the fact that Trump had put these particular legislative agendas into place rather than looking at the agendas themselves. I do know that the situation with the Keystone Pipeline, I know here in South Carolina, people are extremely concerned about that because pipelines eliminate the possibility of accidents that take place on rail cars, that take place in trucks. And there is a real concern here with trying to get gas and oil delivered here to the state. We've already started to see our gas prices go upwards. We were at $1.65 about 2 months ago. We're up now at about $2.50, $2.40, $2.50. So there's a real worry about that. And there's a real worry now with Duke Energy because they use a lot of natural gas to deliver our electricity. And natural gas apparently is going to be verboten along with gasoline and oil with the Biden administration. So there's a lot of concern with people who are not moneyed, that are middle class and lower middle class as we are. So at any rate.
Yeah, well, again, there's that whole debate about, how much should we cut back on the gas and then bring the natural energy into existence? Because if we continue the way we're continuing, we will, the planet will be destroyed. I mean, there's no question about that now. It's not necessarily, it's a climate change. Now, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know how much is the warming of the climate or the, because right now you can't talk about warming of the climate because there's temperatures, minus 30 wind chill factor, but the whole planet is changing. And basically they're saying it's because of the carbon emissions. So we have to do something now. We might have to bite the bullet now and pay more money for the future of our children and our grandchildren. I mean, that might be true, but
my worry is the fact that the brunt of that is going to be paid for by the lower class and the lower middle class, who can very rarely afford things like that. And the upper classes that have plenty of money, they don't really care. In fact, you talk about the Hollywood celebrities that are all talking about, yes, get rid of the Dakota pipeline, get rid of this pipeline, blah, blah, blah. They have money. They don't need to worry about their bills.
Well, that's what everybody says. Oh, it's socialism. It's socialism. How about if the government would work some sort of program that would help out the people who can't afford it? That is a possibility also. But then,
well, how about they maybe ease into this situation with climate change and actually call it by what it needs to be called? It's called pollution. We need to stem pollution, but we don't need to suddenly shut the door on oil and gas. It doesn't make.
But we're not shutting the door. We're changing it. But you probably should listen to my show, Many Shades of Green. And we're talking about that. We're talking about different people who are working on changing what we have. We definitely have to change. We have to change at a more rapid rate than we are now. I mean, that's definite. I mean, it's not going to affect us, me and you, because in another 50 years, I'll be a bit too old to care. But again,
you'll be in the promised land.
Yeah, I don't intend to go to Israel. But it affects our children and our children's children and our children's children's children. We have to do something. Again, how it affects us economically, will be worked out. But we have to do the changes.
I agree, but
there's no question. And the pipeline,
But I don't want the brunt. I don't want the brunt of that change to be borne by those people who could ill afford it. That would be the lower class and the lower middle class. They can ill afford to pay electric bills that go from $200 a month up to $600 a month.
Yeah, but
Very difficult.
But they can also ill afford the fact that if the crops dry up or the different weather conditions prevent the farmers from growing things, they're going to pay more. Whatever happens, the poor and the middle class are going to suffer, no matter which way it goes. I mean, it's a fact of life.
But they did not under this former administration. They actually, you saw less poverty, you saw more money.
Yeah, but
in fact, what was interesting about it was that big business managed to realize that, oh my goodness gracious, we did need to have good, solid workers. We did need to have good employees. And in fact, you saw the average wage go upwards with this last administration. And that's what I'd like to be able to see. I think it's important to make sure that people are included in all of this, and not because of the government saying because of the color of your skin, you're going to get preferential treatment. It should be on the basis of hard work, on the basis of education. And I do say that I do find it amazing that some of these inner city parents are still not able to get a decent education for their children. I don't think that's right. And I think that the Republicans need to take that on as a very, very important issue. We need to have educated people, educated regardless of what the color is. And I do get concerned by the racial delineation with this present administration. Because I'm white, I didn't cause myself to be white. Neither did you. And I don't think that because you're white that you suddenly are a white supremacist. We just happen to be Caucasian, and it's by birth. But I don't want to be divided by race. I don't want to have us divided by race. But at this point right now, I'm hearing that.
Well, the problem is you say the Republicans and the Democrats, nobody's working together to make this a better country. As I say, we were talking about the election, the Republicans and Democrats, and they shouldn't be loyal to their party per se. They should be loyal to the Constitution. They should be loyal to what's right. I mean, that's a problem. It's like we had during the impeachment. It sort of was like, at least to me, it was obvious that he was guilty. He was guilty of incitement. What you do about it is another thing. But he got the people there. There was no reason for them to be there except for, he says, be in Washington on January 6th. And then he incited them by saying, what were they going to do? He said, you can't let the legislature, you can't let the Senate, the legislature accept the states, accept the election. He said that basically. Otherwise, what were they going to do there? Go outside and picket?
That's exactly what they were going to do.
No, they were supposed to stop they were supposed to, like Pence was supposed to not accept the votes. The people were not supposed to let their votes get in.
Pence had personal responsibility when he said, I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, I cannot do that. Personal responsibility. Because once again, if in fact the protesters were a military operation, that they were service people, then you could say, yes, he incited them. He directed this group of people to attack the Capitol. These were American citizens, our American citizens. And at one point you have personal responsibility. You do not go in and toss around people and threaten people. You don't do that. And I got to tell you, for someone to say, Trump told me to do that, it's just a cop-out. It's absurd.
Well, yeah, but that's the way they felt. And there's a whole group of people like this. We are waiting for our orders.
You can feel that way, but if I told you, you need to go ahead and rob a bank, okay? Would you go rob a bank? I don't think so. You got to have some personal responsibility. And that's why I want these people who did breach the Capitol, I want them prosecuted.
Well, they are going to. But again, let's drop this a bit. Let's see what happens. with
I
the
don't want to talk
prosecution.
about it, but it's important to talk about personal responsibility.
Oh, no, I agree, but all of them will be,
have personal responsibility.
yeah, oh, definitely. They have definite responsibility, but you have to take into the fact that ex-President Trump was president of the United States. What he says is not the same as what I say. He has people that say, "Oh yeah, he's our leader," and that's why they came. It was more than one. People say, "Oh yeah, he's our leader. He was telling us what to do. He wanted us to do this." And
it's a cop out.
Yeah, but it's a cop out for them. But he knew it. People that he knew that they were waiting.
Well, one of the things I will give you credit for is the fact that I don't understand why he didn't do it. He should have, as soon as the Capitol was breached, as soon as you could see what was going on, because Fish and I, my husband and I, happened to come back in and turn the TV set on. We were out most all the day and happened to turn the TV set on, and I was stunned. And as soon as you started to see that, I was surprised. I was disappointed, desperately disappointed that President Trump did not come on and say, "Hey, stop it, back away. I didn't tell you to do this, back away." But he didn't. Should have, and he should
have. And from what everything is reported, he was delighted in it. I mean, he was.
I don't believe that.
Well, like he told McCarthy, he said, "Well, he told McCarthy that obviously they care more about the presidency than you do."
I don't believe it.
Who don't you believe? You don't believe McCarthy?
I don't believe at this point right now, and the credibility of the news media right now is at an absolute all-time. And the reason is because it's the little boy who cried wolf too many times. They have, unfortunately, as the news media goes, because I'm a former news reporter myself, you have a fiduciary relationship with your audience, which means that you put your feelings aside and you represent both sides. Unfortunately, we've seen 4 years of this CRAP crap that's been going on against a certain individual because they didn't like President Trump. And you know what? The problem with something like that is that when Trump would do something that was off the wall, people wouldn't believe it anymore. And that's part of that boy calling wolf too many times.
No, but you would.
Right now, they've lost their credibility.
But you were talking about people taking responsibility for themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't think I'm a genius. No, but let's say an average person. I know.
You're a smart guy.
Yeah, but I know when I'm listening to MSNBC, I'm getting a certain angle of the news. Yeah, I can tell by the words they use.
Yep.
They are not giving me they give me partial news. The same way when I listen to Fox.
Yep.
I know what they are not giving me the news. They're giving me their version of the news. They're giving me their opinion. I see Hannity and it can take him for like 2-3 minutes. I see Waters. I only can take him for a few minutes because he's telling me what to think. The same way with MSNBC or CNN. Well, CNN is a little better. I've been listening to NPR, National Public Radio.
I used to work for them until they went nuts.
But they are more the way they choose the stories. Yeah, I know which way they're leaning, but they're a little more tell the story that they tell. They try to report the news. Mm-hmm. But as a person, it's the same way when they say, "Oh, it's a social media." Is the social media? I listen to it. Okay, where's the report from? Who said this?
Right.
I look to the source. And someone said, "Oh no,
you remember the good old days of the Huntley Brinkleys, the Walter Cronkite."
Walter Cronkite.
But you never knew how these people stood, and there was no reason to know how these people stood. You found out later that Walter Cronkite was a liberal. You found out later that Huntley was a conservative and Brinkley was a liberal.
Well, that was when
the news.
Well, we grew up with that. We grew up with Edward R. Murrow.
Absolutely.
He was the one even, well, I don't remember it, but I've heard it in history where they had the McCarthy investigation. He's the one that broke
Yes.
it. When he said, they're wrong, people listened to him.
Yes.
But we don't have those newscasters anymore.
Well, we need that, and we need to have adults in the room, which would be editors and producers that said, listen, you cannot use these emotionally charged words. And I have called our news media here in Greenville several times by saying you cannot use emotionally charged words. And I've had several conversations with the general manager who called to apologize and said, well, we just took that off AP, which is Associated Press.
Right.
Said, you need an editor that actually is going in there, and you cannot use these charged words because it basically is coming up with an opinion. We're there to report facts.
Well, Deborah, I know you can divorce your opinion from the news as a newscaster. What I want to see is you get back on a news show. And then, because I know you can give the news and then say, okay, now this is my opinion. This is Deborah's opinion. It's not news. This is the way I interpret it.
Absolutely.
But it's a way it's a way people use certain words, or they or they phrase it, or they put the story on top.
That's right.
It's a new world right now. Yeah, but right, the people are responsible to interpret, to understand all this, which most people aren't. Again, not that we're superior to most people, but most people don't do it.
Well, but once again, it was very interesting. I remember being a young cub reporter at Channel 13, which was a crisscross station in Los Angeles, and I got back up to see my mom and dad. They lived in a mobile home park up in Calabasas, and I remember an older woman coming down and talking to me about the story that I had done. And she said to me, she says, I had no idea things were this bad. And I looked at her and I said, they're not that bad. They're okay. She says, but you made it sound like it was horrible. It was bad. And you have to, and it was an epiphany for me at that point to realize I had used some words that had changed the story so that this individual, this person, had realized and thought things are terribly bad, but they weren't. So you have a responsibility as a journalist, and I'm not seeing that anymore. It's fine having an opinion. It's fine that Hannity has an opinion, or Waters, or Skelter, all these people have an opinion, but I don't think that it helps the American public make a decision. For example, let's take this Keystone Pipeline, okay? I want to know, statistically, is it safer to have a pipeline, or is it safer to use trucks, and is it or rail? I'd like to know, and I haven't seen that story. And yet these are important decisions that we need to make, very important decisions. I agree with you in terms of climate change. Something needs to be done. I call it pollution. Pollution needs to be changed, all right? But do we do it at the cost of suddenly slamming the door on gasoline powered vehicles? I do believe that we need to press the issue and get things going and get things started. But I also have to realize that with electric vehicles, where are we going to get this electricity? From wind? From solar? It's my understanding that what's going to happen is that we're going to make the cost of electricity, the cost of oil and natural gas so expensive that solar will be, and also wind will be competitive. Well, that's crazy. Why would you basically commit economic suicide here in America when the rest of the world is not doing that at all? We're not holding China to the same standards as we're holding ourselves. So we need to have facts and information, and all we have are these bloody opinions. I'm so sick to death of it.
But you're talking about, like, I agree with you that it can't be by this country alone.
Right.
It has to be by the world, but there has to be leadership. Mm-hmm. There has to be leadership in the world. And previously, many of the countries were looking to the United States for leadership. which I think we lost that in the last 4 years. We lost the fact that other countries were looking to us for leadership. Now, you're right. We might be knocking our heads against a stone wall. And if we are, we'll all be gone. It won't be US. It'll be all these countries. I mean, this whole thing, which becomes very evident, in the last year or so of the climate changes, how all countries, the weather is changing. We are almost like helpless. It's not all of a sudden, oh, well, the science can, put us in a big bubble so the U.S. could be protected by a shield.
But I have to disagree. We're not helpless. I mean, for example, let's take a good example. For example, the vaccine. We fast-tracked that vaccine. We were able to get it faster than we've ever gotten things before. I mean, literally a year ago, we were hit with COVID from out of the blue, and now we have vaccines in a year or less. So I think that we can come up with solutions, not this political diatribe that keeps going on and on and on. We need to do something. For example, when I was in the Philippines, I was astounded at the amount of pollution that was going on there. You couldn't even swim in the oceans, for crying out loud. They needed economic reasons not to be throwing their garbage into the oceans, and not to be putting their chemical waste into the oceans. So there are solutions that are out there. We need to be taking step by step, and we don't need to be giving our adversaries, and I'm talking about China, to give them a pass on this. They produce unbelievable amounts of pollution, and we need to hold them to the same standard.
Oh, definitely. There has to be a world type of organization, which supposedly the UN was at least to start. But what are they doing against the water, the tide level going up? Because all these icebergs, up north in Alaska and Greenland are all falling apart, where the polar bears can rest. There's no place for them to be on land anymore, because the water levels are going up. What are we doing, about the heat in California, which is helping, the forest fires? What are we doing that there are more hurricanes coming around now? I mean, these are the main things that are going to affect the world. And again, it doesn't affect the United States. And if we can't get the cooperation of other countries, there's not going to be a Earth. I mean,
but we cannot completely shut down our independence, our economic independence, with vis-a-vis gas and natural gas, gasoline, oil, and natural gas. We cannot simply commit suicide so that we can say, oh my gosh, we've helped climate change. It reminds me of the adage that if you're on an airplane and you lose pressure, the adage is, do not give the oxygen to your child, give the oxygen to yourself, you're the mom, and then give the oxygen to the child. You've got to survive. The United States has got to be able to survive in order to be in a leadership position. But to automatically commit, energy suicide is absurd, just to say.
Yeah, but it doesn't help.
We've solved climate.
It doesn't help if we give up our energy and the other countries aren't giving up their energy.
I agree.
I mean, that's why you have to work with other countries. There has to be a cooperation. And if not, I mean, who says that there has to be a planet Earth? I mean, is it written? Is it because, I mean, if there's a God, right? He's a God of all the planets. Maybe.
Well, I like the fact that he's a God of planet Earth, so I will vote planet Earth. Number one, planet Earth.
Is he only the God of planet Earth? I mean, it's a different God in Mars, different God in Venus.
No, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to be concerned about Mars, but I'm more concerned about planet Earth and the United States.
But did he cause a flood? Where Noah had everybody? Maybe the destruction of Earth would be like the flood. And there'll
I hope not.
I don't know. But the thing is, there has it can't be only us, and we can't be, if we give up our dependence on the fuel, we can't be, and we'll take, it can't be substituted by being dependent by another country. We have to change the source of fuel throughout the world. I mean, there has to be the change. I mean, without the change, we're all just,
No,
we're all destroyed.
I agree, but I think we can take it on a step-by-step basis, Malcolm, and I really do. And I'm most concerned with this present administration swinging to one side to the other side. We've got to take very quiet, very intellectual steps as to how to solve the problem. And by shutting down our ability to be able to move oil through, for example, this pipeline and what have you, once again, I've heard stats saying that it is far safer moving through a pipeline than it is going through trucks and rail cars.
I've heard of lots of pipes, the crack. Yeah, I heard the earthquakes that destroy all the where the leaks. I see a cat there. Anyway,
I've got to introduce you. This is Gracie.
Hi, Gracie. Ooh, she looks like she's well taken care of.
Oh, she's a love. If you ever saw Downton Abbey had Mrs. Hughes, and Gracie here is Mrs. Hughes. She runs the household.
Yeah,
and
she was a cook, right? Mrs. Hughes was a cook, or she was a.
She ran the entire household.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yes, and
I love that series. But anyway, our half hour is up. I don't know if we've solved the problems of the world, but I would much rather on Friday, talk about what's happening in South Carolina and what's happening with fish and what's happening with the.
Let me show you what we're going to be talking about on Friday. Okay, this is some of the Southern cookbooks that I'm starting to get into. Fascinating cookbooks, interesting stories about the South. Southern cooking is different, far, far different. Here's one called Buttermilk Kitchen, and it's a kitchen that's in Georgia, which is very, very close by to us, within about 50 to 75 miles. And we'll talk a little bit about the cookbooks, because being sequestered in here, even though I've had my vaccine, we're still pretty well sequestered here at the house. And we've been doing some interesting cooking here. So we can start to chat about that as well. How about that?
That sounds good to me. Anyway, we'll be back in about 4 days. Well, let's see. Okay, this is
Monday. This is Monday.
We'll be back on Friday.
We will be.
So anyway, you guys, if you have any questions for us, you can get us at malcolmpresents@gmail.com. You could see other shows with Deborah and myself at malcolmpresents.com, and just go to Conversations with Deborah or my other shows.
Thanks so much.
Okay, send my love to fish.
Will do.
Bye.
Bye-bye.